Well, welcome to another session. Today, I am going to be speaking to the topic, the stages in a man's life. Before I begin, let me start with two quotes, and I believe these two quotes would set the theme that I'm hoping to put across. The first comes from T.E. Lawrence, in which he says, "All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night wake up in the dusty recesses of their minds to find out that it's all been vanity. But the dreamers of the day are powerful men, for they get to act out their dreams to make it possible." Very powerful. Now, the second quote comes from Henry David Thoreau, who I, over the years, have a fondness for and one I've referenced in some of my very early videos, in which he says that if you can advance confidently in the direction of your dreams and endeavor to live the life that you have imagined, that you will meet with success, unexpected, in uncommon hours. Now, both quotes are very powerful. What I would like to do is extract two important parts from each. The first is that the importance of dreaming with your eyes open, and more importantly, the importance of understanding that the work needed to act out the dream is more important than the dream itself. Most dreams become fantasies. They become wishes. They become like a cigarette smoke. Poof, they fade because most people dream with their eyes closed. And therefore, they can't act out their dreams and make those dreams possible. The second part has to do with the second quote, which is that when you've created a dream, some of the time, and from my experience, most of the time, all you need is faith. Faith and confidence to move in the direction of that dream. Success as we know it has become a buzzword. Most people think of success as the destination. I've always seen success as the journey, but recognizing that the destination plays a part in understanding the progress you have made. And your destination is never a set place. So if you're moving from point A towards point B, at any point in time along that trajectory, if you were to stop and look back, you have identified a progress you've made. Hence, success for me has always been the progressive realization of a desired ideal, a desired goal, the advancement towards a purpose, a calling, a passion, a gift, an assignment. Now, most men, unfortunately, we dream with our eyes closed. We do so because we don't know better. We do so because sometimes there is no one to tell us that we have to have our eyes open. Over the last few weeks, I have talked about several issues, primarily on relationships. The purpose was simply to identify to young men the importance of staying focused on your dream. I have said, and I stand by such a statement, that one of the most powerful dream killers for every man is a relationship with a woman, if you're heterosexual. If you're not heterosexual, it's a relationship with whoever you choose, an intimate relationship. And if that relationship blossoms and you start a family prematurely, there goes your dream. All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night wake up in the dusty recesses of their minds to find out that it was all vanity. But the dreamers of the day are powerful men, for they get to act out their dreams and make it a reality and make it possible. In today's session, I'm going to focus on my experience of the different stages that a man will go through. As I go along, I will make you aware of some of the stages I've not lived, and therefore I cannot share an experience, or I cannot opine on what it will be like if I am lucky, if I am blessed. When I get to that stage, I will share what I have experienced. Now, let's start with the first. Now, the first is the stage that I call the dependent stage. Age 0 to 18 years. And then you start from being a newborn to an infant, to a toddler, then you move into being a preschool, and then of school age, and finally you arrive at being a teenager. And most teenagers look forward to being treated as adults. 0 to 18 is the first stage of a man's life. It's an important phase. Unfortunately, it's the phase whereby you are simply dependent. Like a sponge, you absorb everything around you. Your environment influences you, but you don't get to choose your environment. Your associations influence you. Sadly, you seldom get to choose your association. Your goals, your dreams are not yours. They're given to you by people around you, by people who care for you, by people who love you, and even by people who despise and mistreat you. Your relationships, most of the time, are not chosen always by you. It's a product of your environment, sometimes of the decisions your parents make. So between 0 and 18, you are completely dependent. Your subconscious mind is open in the first few years, and you absorb everything. Things you hear by voice, things you hear by other people's voices. You also get influenced by things you see. In my experience, and in my opinion, the most significant part of a man's life begins at this phase. Unfortunately, you have very, very, very little control of the outcomes. And so I don't dwell much on the first phase. There's nothing I can do to help you. There is what I call a line of authority, a chain of command. Your parents come first. A stranger on YouTube, a stranger you've never seen before, a stranger you've never met before, should not be your first priority or your first learning guide, should I say. Now, the second stage is 18 to 35. I call this your development stage. The development stage is where I come into the picture. Interestingly, if you've listened to the conversations that I have had over the last many weeks, I talk about 3 groups of men. Those between 0 and 18, I call them the preschool. Between 18 and 35, my focus group, and then 35 and above. I've always been fascinated by the middle group, my focus group, 18 to 35. And part of the reason was because many years ago, I began my own journey of personal development. self-help, wanting to be the best and to design a life worthy of living. And as I learned about new things and how to set goals and how time management, the importance of purpose and having passion, how to have self-confidence, how to deal with rejection, how to plan, how to create a strategy, I wanted to share this with people who are younger because I learned that all of these nuggets of life were things I didn't experience between 0 and 18. Interestingly, I went to perhaps, I would say, maybe 80% of the schools in London. I reached out to them and said, listen, I'm happy to come at my time, my expense, and I want to speak to the young ones, especially those who are the rejects. Give me the rejects and let me work with them. As you can imagine, a noble gesture on my part, a naive gesture nonetheless. In hindsight, I realize a stranger coming into the school system, and I did a few times, but a stranger coming into the school system and speaking to young kids perhaps was not necessarily the best way to influence young people. I transitioned from that group to 18 to 35 because it dawned on me one evening that the best people to speak to are people who are adults, people who have come to the point of emancipation and who can speak and choose the life they want to lead. 18 to 35 is my preferred group. In addition to that, my audience on YouTube, small as they may be, when I've looked at the metrics, it's 18 to 35, the age groups. This is the development stage. Now, you have 18 years, and in those 18 years, you can sow the seeds of greatness. You can sow as far as you want and as wide as you want a field. You can create the foundation of what I call the good life, with the different pillars of what you wish to experience in the future. Wealth, health, success, lifestyle, friendship, career, success, business, spirituality. You can build the most amazing future. However, it begins with the dream. And so we go back to the dreams that I alluded to at the start in the quotes. That if you can advance confidently in the direction of your dream and imagine the life that you wish, and you confidently move towards that direction, then you will meet with success, unexpected in uncommon hours. The first thing is you need a dream. Between 18 and 35, that is your time to dream. Plant the seeds, water the soil, nurture the soil, feed the crops, tender to the crops, prune the crops, and wait. Someday, your acorn will become an oak tree. 18 to 35, the most crucial part of a man's life. Sadly, the most vulnerable point in a man's life. Now, 18 to 35 can be broken down into several elements. From 18 to 22, 5 years for education. 22, in my opinion, to 30, which gives you what I believe to be the fundamental period of work, where you get to accumulate 10,000 hours of practice, developing the skill sets, the attitude, the abilities in an area of gifting. My favorite part, 30 to 35, which is the time for failure. You begin with a dream. You go into education. You move from education into real life, apprenticing under someone, learning a trade, developing the skills, becoming a self-sustaining human being. From 30 to 35, experimentation. You've built a foundation of security. Between 23 and 30, you have had 8 years to harness your skill set, which means at 30, you have security. There is something you can do proficiently that people will very gladly reward you for. But that may not be your dream. That may not be your purpose. That may not be your calling. That may not be your vision. 30 to 35 is always the period where young men should experiment. Try things. Go chase rabbits in the wilderness if you want to, but pursue a passion you have, a calling you have, because you now have a foundation of support and security. You've accumulated some wealth. From 30 to 35, you can try those ideas, you can try those possibilities, you can advance confidently in the direction of your dreams without hesitation. Now, the third stage is 35 to 45. Again, another important phase of your life. I tend to, not for all people, for some men, I tend to consider this the transition phase towards being a father, being a husband, getting into a committed relationship. Now, if you've listened to me speak over the last few weeks, I have said that you should not be in a committed relationship until 35. You should not be married until 35. You should not have kids until 35. You should not be living with a woman until 35. You should not pursue any intimate relationship on an exclusive basis. In other words, a mono relationship before 35. From 35, that's when you can get married. The reason for this is because I tend to find 30 to 35 is where you get to fail. That's where your manhood is developed. You get to fail and try things and fail. Most men fail in relationships because we haven't failed in life. So the first time something goes wrong in a marriage, in a partnership agreement, in a cohabitation agreement, if that is the first failure you've had, our natural instinct is to run. Unfortunately, that's easy. That is the path of least resistance. But if you've delayed starting a family and you've delayed marriage until 35, you've had 18 years to try things. You have an understanding of your manhood. You have an understanding about your self-identity, your self-worth, your self-confidence. You have self-assurance. Nothing is as deadly as self-deceit. As the saying goes, for that which a man believes, that also he will do. Most people deceive themselves, especially between 18 and 35, into forced manhood. And from 35 and above, they get into the challenges of life and the waves, and most people cannot and often give up on the dream for the path of least resistance. So my recommendation is 35 to 45 is the time when you can start to entertain family. Now, it's easier to sacrifice some of you, which is something you would need, for family. That will be easy because you've spent the prior 18 years focusing on yourself. I even said, and I recommend this, that 95% of your time between 18 and 35 should be spent on your vision, your dreams, your goals, your future, creating wealth, becoming your best self. 5% of that can be allocated to relationships. Now, if you've done that successfully, I did, Then from 35 and above, the idea of becoming a father, the idea of becoming settled down, becoming a husband, a partner, should not be something that scares you. Yes, you get to choose something above yourself. The family, the wife, the children. You place them first. But that doesn't scare you. It's not a daunting experience because you've already invested 18 years in yourself. Now the next stage, which is number 4, is 45 to 55. Again, another phase for family. Interestingly, the first phase, 35 to 45, gives you 10 to 11 years. 45 to 55 is another 10 to 11 years. That is enough for you to then raise kids and they become emancipated. Generally speaking, from about 50, you have your life back. Phase number 5 is 55 and above. However, from 50, your children, depending on how fast you have them, are coming towards the end of phase number 1, which is 0 to 18. So they become emancipated, they become adults, you get your life back. 5 simple stages of a man's life. The most important phase, for which you have control over, is the second, 18 to 35. Use it wisely, and it will serve you. All of the gains from 35 and above often are simple products of what you did between 18 and 35. If you play your cards right, the universe seldom rejects your cards. And let me conclude by going back to what I started today's session with, which was 2 quotes. The first from T.E. Lawrence, in which he said, "All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night wake up in the dusty recesses of their minds to find that it was all vanity. But the dreamers of the day are powerful men, for they get to act out their dream to make it possible." Keep your eyes open. 18 to 35. Keep your eyes open. 35 and above, labor on that dream. Quote number 2, and I close. If you can advance confidently in the direction of your dreams and endeavor, in other words, just give it your best shot. Endeavor to live the life that you have imagined. You will meet with success, unexpected, in uncommon hours. Henry David Thoreau. Fascinating, isn't it? I wish you luck.